Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from Madison Realty Capital, Capital One Bank, Eastern Consolidated, New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, Sterling National Bank, Meridian Capital Group, Customers Bank, AmTrust Title, Ariel Property Advisors, Dime Community Bank. Additional funding has been provided by AVR Realty Company, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Chase Mortgage Lending, Citizens Bank, CPEX Real Estate Services, Colliers International NYC, Collins Building Services, Douglaston Development, Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handler Real Estate Organization, Handro Properties, Hodges Ward Elliott, Inc., Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Matone Group, Mercantile Bank, New Banks, Newmark Knight Frank, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rockefeller Group, Rosewood Realty Group, SJP Properties, Stonehenge NYC, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Meringoff Family Foundation, the Moynihan Organization, Moynihan Capital Partners, and these friends.
It's Queens, and there are two areas in Queens that are really growing. One is called Jamaica, and one is called Ridgewood. Jamaica has great transportation, and parts of Ridgewood have great transportation. Today, so I've assembled this group of business leaders to provide their insight in what's happening in this community. My guests include my good friend, the chairman of the board, the CEO, the founder of the Matone Group, LLC, Joseph Matone Sr., our banker, who has recently been promoted, Laura Greenfield, who is the Executive Vice President for the Metropolitan Region for People's United Bank. Our developer, who's doing a major development throughout Queens and in other parts of the city, Meredith Marshall, the founder of BRP. And last but not least, a man who's been in Brooklyn, Queens, and specifically in Ridgewood, Mitch Rutter, principal of Essex Capital Partners. So, Joe, how many years ago did you begin to invest in Jamaica?
Well, in round years, about 30 years, I guess.
What brought you to Jamaica?
What brought me to Jamaica was a deal I was able to put together with Walbaums. They were looking for a location that would provide them with a store of about 42,000 feet and parking. And so we scoured the area. Ridgewood was then a good combination of white middle-class German, Irish, and population. And they thought that that might be appealing to their market. So we were able to pick up the site and put up the store, and we put them in there. And they did well for a while, but the populations began to trend a little differently. And we then found out that their preference was that they would have preferred to find somebody to occupy the store other than themselves. And we were able to begin to deal with the Korean supermarkets.
But how do you get, with regard to the community, how do you get Home Depot to make a commitment many years ago to Jamaica? at one time a thriving community.
Yes.
Then it went down in business. People didn't want to be there. There was the safety factor.
That has a historical fact that only God knows how he was able to accomplish that, because that property was the old Long Island Press, and it was owned by Rita Stark, who had never sold a piece of property in her entire life. And with the help of Jerry Kessler, one of my partners, we spent many a morning at her office in Jamaica, on Jamaica Avenue, with her dog, and bringing her a cup of coffee. I don't know how many times we visited.
Did you bring her the donuts also?
Oh, no, shit, not donuts. But we offered her coffee and convinced her that we would, tear it down, because it was a fort. It was built like a fort, literally the press building.
So how big is the Home Depot?
Oh, the Home Depot there is every bit of 105,000 feet. It's a pretty big one.
Now, let's go to the next generation. How do you decide to get involved with Jamaica?
Well, about 5 years ago, after the rezoning occurred in 2007, we were looking for density around decent transportation. And we met with Greater Jamaica Development Corp, and they were selling the virtues of Jamaica. And we noticed that we can build to 290 feet in an R10. And, from working in Harlem and Brooklyn, where you have sort of squat zoning, that was very, very appealing to us. So we were able to buy land at a great price. And even we're targeting sort of a middle income, affordable, moderate demographic. The numbers penciled out for us.
But for many years, Joe put the Home Depot, he's put other retailers over there. You never really went into the residential in that market, correct, Joe?
I never did, because I was more concentrated on the commercial aspect of it. And probably felt more comfortable with the areas I knew. I wasn't residentially oriented, to be honest with you, at that particular time. Then we did try to do the piece on Merrick opposite the Home Depot. We couldn't get the police to move.
Right.
That's probably one of your challenges at the time. That was a difficult deal. We had plans drawn and the whole gamilla. But the police were very resistant about being relocated from that location where they stored, broken down cars.
Right.
Laura, how as a banker do you look at these, I won't call them bedroom communities, but they're
transitioning.
Transit-oriented
Yes.
developments. How do you as a banker and the bank in general look at Jamaica, Bushwick, Ridgewood, we're specifically talking about Jamaica and Ridgewood?
So we first and foremost will focus on our sponsors. And what we've been noticing is that many of our sponsors are going into the Ridgewoods, Jamaicas. And in fact, I just have to bring this up, we tried to finance Mitch's Ridgewood deal. That was probably about 4 years ago. And that was a very transitioning area at the time. And so one of the things that you need to do as a lender is to listen to a borrower strategy, right? Especially when you don't have a lot of direct comps in the area. So we had maybe 5 comps that were in different geographic locations that we had to really understand and analyze. And many times because of that, borrowers have to put in maybe a tad more equity in those type of transitioning areas.
You've been developing in all parts of the city, and prior to going to Ridgewood, you were in downtown Brooklyn. How do you decide to become a semi-pioneer, because you were one of the first new developments in Ridgewood?
We began to look at what I would call emerging submarkets with Bloomberg's success in what I think he doesn't get enough credit for, which is having New York win the talent sweepstakes. And we saw a trend of a change in how people work and how people needed to be in the city. And if they couldn't afford to be in Manhattan, then they needed to be near a transit hub. And we proved this out with a not a big job that we built in downtown Brooklyn, maybe 70 units, where we were able to achieve 60 a foot in a building with a very clean building, but it had popcorn ceilings and no amenities. Every foot was used in that building to create rentable space. In fact, recently we had to take space from the super to create an automated package room. That's how, what a dearth of space we had that wasn't rented. So when we were looking at other transit linked locations, and Ridgewood really fit the bill. And it met the requirements of these new talented workers, so to speak. It had transit, it had diversity, it had culture, and it also had something that's become very, very important, which is walkability. Ridgewood, and I object when people say that Ridgewood is an example of the Brooklynization of Queens. Ridgewood really has its own character. It was a residential neighborhood. It's home to a tremendous amount of different ethnic groups, including the city's largest Nepalese population. And so we found a site that we were able to demolish. It wasn't residential. We weren't displacing housing. So we were able to keep the community on our side. And we built 90 units, only six studios, 48 twos and 36 ones. And we're 100% rented. The TCO we obtained in October. And I would say that if it wasn't for the slowdown in the winter months, for those units rented in the winter, we probably would be getting for those units about $100 more a month.
So here's my question. Who's moving to these units? Are they millennials? Are they other people?
I'll tell you that first of all, we have 6 families in the building with children. We have people who work at home who can afford the 2-bedroom and they use the smaller bedroom as an office. Then we have others who work at home that took the 2 bedrooms to share and work. We have a work center downstairs. We have a lot of common amenities. And then there's another group that I did not anticipate. There's maybe 6 units that we rented to people who work on Long Island. They want to be near the city, but they can't live in the city because they're commuting the other way, and we have parking. So they chose to live in Ridgewood based upon everything that it has to offer.
Who do you expect moving to Jamaica? Will they be current people? Because you have a significant affordable component in some of your properties. Right. And under the affordability rules, 50% must go to people who live in the community board.
Exactly. So for those units, we expect at least 50% from the surrounding community boards in Southeast Queens. Other than that, we share the same sentiment Mitch shares, that we expect, because we're right on top of the Long Island Railroad, that we will have reverse commuters who work in Long Island and who choose to live in Jamaica. We also see the movement eastward from Brooklyn. And with the Long Island Railroad, you can get to Atlantic train station in downtown Brooklyn fairly easily and quickly. So we believe Brooklynites will move out to Queens and commute back to Brooklyn if they work and play in Brooklyn as well.
What's your thoughts about that?
It is accessible rail.
I mean, the railroad is great, but you have certain negatives.
And
it's expensive also.
You got the subway.
You
got one of the, on Archer Avenue, the end of the line by my complex, is one of the busiest stations around for that reason. And you got loads of buses.
That's right.
I'm giving it to you straight.
That's right.
And we have like a 400-car parking, under our theater, which you can't get a space in the colder weather, if you know what I mean.
You know, one of the nice things that's taking place in the city are ferries, okay? Unfortunately, there are not ferries for Jamaica, okay? Because there's not that much water unless we take a bay or something.
You got to be a canal, yeah.
Right, you're in a canal over there. How do you, as a banker, besides the fact that you want to deal with proven sponsors, how do you think of Ridgewood? We were saying transit-oriented development, both Ridgewood and Jamaica today.
At Ridgewood, I mean, being on the L and the M, right? If you have more than one subway station, that to us is a huge positive. It gives residents, employees, workers options, right, of getting to multiple different places. I think that's what's so unique about Jamaica. It is truly the transportation hub in Queens.
Right. I mean, you know, that's what the new Brooklyn building, the Extella building on top of City Point, you know, they're saying you have 7 subways over there. There is no question the fact that you have the subways, the means of transportation, and alternative means are important. Coupled with what you're talking about, the buses and the Long Island Railroad increases over there. So what are you trying to build in Ridgewood now?
Well, we're building about 700,000 square feet with a first level of commercial, a second level of office facility, that type of thing, and maybe a third level of office facility, or commercially involvement. And
How many apartments?
I'd have to say, about 300, maybe 375, maybe 400.
And will you have an affordable component within?
Yes, I would definitely 30%.
30% rule, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
which probably will be rather similar to the area median income for the market rate apartments.
Correct. Right.
So it's
Not too
rather
far off.
similar.
Should be
Not
about $5, within $5.
What type of retail do you expect in Jamaica?
Well, we have the Koreans there now, see.
So they're going to go back. in
Oh,
there.
they don't want to leave. That's their best store.
The store is going to remain
Well, the
open?
question is, how do we work it with them while we're building? In other words, that's the problem we're trying to solve by Thursday. You know, how can we, you know, really, a little bit, it's really the issue for Carl now and the engineers and the merchants.
The
we
real
do it in
question is
2 stages?
how fast can you build is the real question.
Well, we can do it probably in about 2 years if we really streamline it, which we think we can do. Because
I remember a project that I had seen in Williamsburg a couple years ago. There was a local key food cooperative, and basically they had their location, and they loved their location. So the builder gave them the location back, you know, and they had to figure out something to do.
Well, that's
during
what
the
we're
period of
doing.
time.
We're doing a condo for them. We're
Right.
building, you know, X number of square feet. We're increasing the 42,000 they have now to 60,000, plus a little bit additional storage.
I mean, a 60,000 square foot supermarket in today's community, you know, they must be doing well, but there's a lot of people within the area. With regard to that, how do you as a banker today look at retail in New York City?
We like retail. To us, it's all about, you know, the comps again.
Right.
A lot of times we're looking at when we're financing retail, it's about are they buying the retail at? Where are the rents today? And many times the current rents are 20, 30% below market. So it's great upside for the owners.
In the retail that you see in Jamaica, because there has been a thriving retail in Jamaica,
Yes.
even with the changes in the community and so on, people still go to Jamaica
Right.
for retail. I mean, the great example is the Home Depot and the other stores that Joe has in downtown Jamaica.
Right. And Jamaica Avenue commands rents into the triple digits. Some rents up to $150 a foot. And,
Yeah.
and Joe's the expert in retail.
Well,
But we're a block off on Archer, but we've had initial indications for our prime Sutphin frontage at triple digits.
Now you have 2 projects in Jamaica. You have the crossings and
I have the crossing, and I have something else called Archer Towers.
Right.
Will be on Guy Brewer and
Nice.
Archer, and I have a third.
And what's that?
Staging. That's going to be called 9090. It's 90th Street near Jamaica.
No.
Jamaica, and that's going to be retail and possibly housing.
so
That's what Jeff Sutton's.
So here's the question with regard to this. Do you think, you know, because what's happening in downtown Brooklyn now, with the exception with Gary Barnett's condo, where people, do you think potentially for both of you over there in the Jamaica and the Ridgewood area, condominiums, because people would like home ownership.
So I think that Ridgewood, if you can deliver condos and make a profit at the 800 a foot level, the 750 a foot level, there's a ready market. I wouldn't want to be out there with a higher break-even
See,
forcing.
but I think bringing out the $800 a foot apartment, okay, where somebody could get a 1,000 square foot 2-bedroom apartment for $800,000 with ownership, and probably a 25-year tax abatement, which they would qualify. That's an important idea that people would like.
You're absolutely right, but under the 421 expiration, they got rid of that option. So unless you have, I think, was it 30 condos or less,
Right.
there's no tax
Right.
exemption for the middle class home.
The only way around that, which we've been playing with, but it's a Rubik's Cube,
Cooperative.
is to subdivide a larger site into separate lots where you have less than the requisite amount of units, and it also takes away the parking requirement.
Yep.
But the key, and it works, but the key is to find land that plugs in
Right.
at the right number.
Absolutely right.
With regard to that, what are the parking requirements in Jamaica and Ridgewood?
So in Ridgewood, it's 50% of the number of units. I'm not sure about
Right.
Jamaica.
It's 50%, but if you're below 80% of AMI, it gets waived. So we have a 30% below. So our effective parking ratio is a lot less than 50%.
Now, people don't realize, besides parking, the parking requirement, there's the bicycle requirement.
Right, right.
Right.
And we find that we're sort of oversubscribed with bicycle racks because, well, at least our projects in Brooklyn and Harlem, everyone rides bicycles now. So that's good. You have a healthy
That was a big amenity
population.
in our building, the bike racks.
What about the other thing, with the amount of deliveries from Amazon and Fresh Direct and Instacart and all of these other home delivery services, in your plans and also in yours, are you building larger rooms to accept
We are.
cold rooms, as they would say?
And we have to redesign because that sort of pressure is moving quickly. So there's package rooms. I think we even have cold storage now.
Right, we built,
Sure.
we have a virtual doorman, which allows for fresh direct deliveries into cold storage as well as big packages.
So that's with 90 units. You have no doorman at all.
No
Any
doorman,
part-time?
and the market does not expect it.
Are you planning to put a doorman in your
Well,
building?
we have 669 units.
Okay. When we're talking about expansion, do we see Corona? Do we see Aqueduct area near Aqueduct Racetrack as potential? Because, as they would say in the situation, they're not building much more new land,
Right.
okay?
Right.
So since we don't have more potential land, where do you see the opportunities for developers in Queens that haven't been taken care of yet?
Well, that's a very... The problem is what the particular property offers to the potential developer.
Right.
I mean, that's a very
No.
esoteric question.
But you
in
know
the
what?
sense that-
But I think my
I mean,
comment
if you don't
about
have
the aqueduct.
transportation, you know what I'm saying? And
Well, I would I would add to that.
Yeah.
I mean, just a point is, first, although land might be cheaper in Queens,
yeah.
construction costs are not,
No, not cheap.
they're not appreciably cheaper. And land prices, particularly given the new 421A rules, don't pencil so easily. So, for instance, I would say that a place that we look would be Woodside, but it's not the same demographic as Ridgewood. It's more of a workforce housing with some overtime millennials going there. It's not what I described for Ridgewood. We were on a site in Woodside, large, over 300,000 feet, where it seemed like a great price, 108 a foot. And when you impute the construction costs and the time to build, it was a 6.2 cap at best, if no mistakes were made. So that's just not viable.
But if you look in consideration of the resorts at Aqueduct Racetrack is the highest grossing casino in the country, the volume over there. There are people who are working over there. You know, you're right at JFK Airport, okay, which is not far from you in Jamaica, but the negative of that neighborhood is that they don't have transportation. They don't have the transit-oriented development because it's isolated.
Right.
So you take the train to Jamaica, and then you have to take a bus to get over there.
Right.
So it increases the transportation time by at least another half an hour. But I think retail is a different segment over there, you know, because people, you know, it's like what happened in Starrett City, you know, nearby, where the retail at Starrett City has done well.
Oh, the related piece.
The related property, the Gateway Center over there. Do you see, both of you, do you see national retailers moving into Jamaica, new ones, Jamaica and Ridgewood?
Yes, I see with the number of units that are going up and the number of hotel units going up, I think the market will prove to be a successful market, and I think retailers are a bit tepid now, but once they see that success and that new demographic living en masse in Jamaica, I think they'll move in.
I mean, Mr. Matone has
the
done...
caveat that he mentioned, he said that they're tepid. They are tepid because of the Amazon issue.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? I think I agree with him on that. And that's got to be overcome.
But I think the fast casual food, which you've put on a couple of your pads.
Yes. But even those have slowed down somewhat. I don't know what he's experienced, but they're a lot harder to convince to take space.
But you know what? There are the people like Trader Joe's, Whole Foods 365.
Oh, yeah, they're there.
There are
Yes.
tenants going in there.
Yes.
You know, as you said, you know, the Gap and Old Navy and other people have gone into different locations.
Yeah.
Right.
And the market is there. But I think in summation, if I was polishing my apple over here, I'd say it seems relatively bright for the opportunities in Jamaica and in Ridgewood and other parts of
Absolutely.
Queens.
Absolutely.
I think there's no question that Flushing continues to be a dynamic market. And I think, you know, if you have well-positioned developers with good experience, then our banker will lend money. And if the opportunities are there, and if we have an administration that's open to creation affordable housing, and housing will be there. So I'd like to thank my friend Mr. Matone,
Thank you for
Laura,
having me.
Meredith, and Mitch, and I'll see you next week.
Thank
Thank
you.
you again.
Thank you.